London in the 1700s was a city caught between two worlds. A sprawling metropolis of over 500,000 souls, it was simultaneously Europe's largest city and one of its most chaotic. The medieval capital was being torn down and rebuilt in the classical style, while coffee houses and commerce were creating a new kind of urban culture. This was the age of Enlightenment, of empire, of unprecedented wealth flowing into Britain from across the globe. The city that emerged would set the template for modern urban life. Through careful analysis of period paintings, engravings, and architectural records, we can now reconstruct these lost scenes with remarkable precision. What you're about to see are historically accurate recreations based on authentic 18th century sources, allowing us to walk the streets of Georgian London as they actually appeared nearly 3 centuries ago. This is your invitation to step back in time. We begin our journey at London Bridge, the only crossing of the Thames until Westminster Bridge opened in 1750. What you're seeing is extraordinary. This isn't just a bridge, it's a street suspended over water. For over 500 years, London Bridge was lined with houses and shops, some rising 6 or 7 stories high. Merchants and tradesmen lived and worked in these precarious buildings, their upper floors jutting out over the river below. The roadway between them was barely 12 feet wide, creating constant traffic jams of carts, livestock, and pedestrians. At the southern end stood the Great Stone Gate, and mounted on spikes above it were the severed heads of executed traitors, left to rot as a warning to anyone entering the city. By the 1700s, this medieval practice was finally ending, but the bridge remained a wonder that visitors came specifically to see. Beneath the 19 arches, the Thames rushed through with such force that shooting the bridge in a boat was genuinely dangerous. Many drowned attempting it. This bridge was more than infrastructure. It was a neighborhood, a landmark, and a symbol of London's stubborn refusal to abandon its medieval past even as modernity pressed in from all sides. Now we move to Covent Garden, the beating heart of London's social life. Originally the garden of Westminster Abbey, this area was transformed in the 1630s into London's first formal square, designed by Inigo Jones. By the 1700s, it had evolved into something entirely different. The piazza you see here is packed with market stalls selling fruits, vegetables, and flowers brought in from the countryside each morning. This was London's main produce market, and it operated in chaotic fashion from dawn until mid-morning. The elegant portico of St. Paul's Church, known as the Actors' Church, dominates the western side. The surrounding area was famous for its coffee houses, each one a hub of gossip, business, and political debate. The Bedford Coffee House was where actors and writers gathered. Buttons was the favorite of literary men. At any given time, you might find Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, or Henry Fielding debating the issues of the day over coffee and tobacco. But Covent Garden had a darker side. By night, it transformed into London's most notorious red light district. The same piazza that hosted respectable commerce by day became the hunting ground of prostitutes and their clients after dark. The area's taverns and bagnios, essentially brothels, were legendary. This duality, respectability and vice existing side by side, was quintessentially Georgian London. Let us proceed to the Strand, the grand avenue connecting the city of London with Westminster. This was where the wealthy built their palatial townhouses, each with gardens running down to the Thames. By the 1700s, many of these great houses were being demolished or converted to other uses as the aristocracy moved westward to newer developments. What remains is a bustling thoroughfare lined with shops, taverns, and coaching inns. The street is packed with sedan chairs carrying the wealthy, carts hauling goods, and pedestrians of every social class jostling for space. There are no sidewalks yet, so everyone shares the muddy roadway with horses and vehicles. The smell would be overwhelming. Horse manure, human waste, coal smoke, and the various trades all contributed their particular aromas. Street vendors cry their wares. Milkmaids with pails balanced on their heads. Pie sellers, ballad singers, knife grinders. The noise is constant and cacophonous. This is urban life in its rawest form, before zoning laws, before sanitation systems, before any real attempt at city planning. Notice the shop signs hanging over the street. Since most people couldn't read, businesses advertised with elaborate pictorial signs. A boot for a cobbler, a striped pole for a barber, a mortar and pestle for an apothecary. These signs were works of art, but they were also hazards. They frequently fell during storms, occasionally killing passers-by. Our journey takes us next to St. James's Park, a rare oasis of green in the densely packed city. Originally a swampy field used for hunting, it was transformed by Charles II after the restoration into a formal park inspired by Versailles. By the 1700s, this was where fashionable London came to see and be seen. The long canal runs through the center, and the tree-lined walks on either side are thronged with promenaders in their finest clothes. This was the place for assignations, both romantic and political. Deals were struck, affairs begun, reputations made and destroyed, all while maintaining the pretense of a leisurely stroll. The park was open to anyone respectably dressed, making it one of the few spaces where different social classes mingle, though always maintaining careful distinctions. At the eastern end, you can see the ramshackle collection of buildings that make up St. James's Palace, the official royal residence. To the north lies the fashionable neighborhood of St. James's, where the wealthiest built their townhouses and the most exclusive gentlemen's clubs were establishing themselves. White's, the oldest, was already legendary for the astronomical sums gambled away at its tables. The park itself was surprisingly rural. Deer grazed here. Cows were kept to provide fresh milk, which was sold directly to visitors. This combination of nature and society, of rural simplicity and urban sophistication, epitomized the Georgian ideal. We must visit Smithfield, London's great meat market, in operation since medieval times. What you witness here is not for the faint of heart. This vast open space north of the city walls is where livestock from across England is brought to be sold and slaughtered. On market days, thousands of cattle, sheep, and pigs are driven through the narrow streets, causing chaos and frequently injuring or killing pedestrians trampled in the crush. The noise of bellowing animals, shouting drovers, and haggling butchers is deafening. The ground is churned to mud mixed with blood and excrement. Slaughterhouses ring the market, and the work of butchering happens in full public view. Entrails are thrown into the streets. Blood runs in the gutters. The stench carries for miles. This is the brutal reality of feeding a city of 500,000 people before refrigeration, before animal welfare laws, before any modern conception of hygiene. Yet this same space also hosted Bartholomew Fair each summer, a raucous celebration featuring acrobats, puppet shows, freaks, and every form of entertainment imaginable. The fair was so rowdy and disreputable that respectable people attended in disguise. This juxtaposition of the commercial and the carnivalesque, the necessary and the excessive, reveals much about Georgian sensibilities. Let us conclude at Westminster, the seat of political power. Westminster Hall, built in the 11th century, remains the oldest part of the Palace of Westminster. Its magnificent hammer beam roof soars overhead, and beneath it, the law courts operate in barely controlled chaos. Multiple trials proceed simultaneously in different corners of the hall, with lawyers shouting to be heard over each other. Vendors sell refreshments and pamphlets. Pickpockets work the crowds. This is justice's public spectacle. Adjacent stands Westminster Abbey, where monarchs are crowned and buried, and nearby, the ramshackle collection of buildings housing Parliament. The House of Commons meets in St. Stephen's Chapel, a space so small that members cannot all sit at once. Debates are rowdy, sometimes violent affairs, with members shouting, jeering, and occasionally coming to blows. There is no Hansard yet to record proceedings officially, though newspapers report the debates in barely disguised form. The area around Westminster is a curious mixture of the grand and the squalid. Elegant townhouses stand alongside slums. Aristocrats in sedan chairs pass beggars in the street. This was the nature of 18th century London. Extreme wealth and desperate poverty existed side by side, often in the same neighborhood. sometimes in the same building. The city made no attempt to segregate classes or functions. Everything mixed together in glorious, filthy, vibrant confusion. London in the 1700s was a city of contradictions. It was elegant and squalid, sophisticated and brutal, a place where Enlightenment philosophy flourished in coffee houses while public executions drew enormous crowds. It was being rebuilt in classical grandeur, while much of the population lived in medieval squalor. This was the city that would soon become the capital of the largest empire the world had ever seen, yet it lacked basic infrastructure we take for granted. There was no police force, no street lighting beyond a few oil lamps, no sanitation system worthy of the name. Disease was rampant. Gin was cheaper than beer, fueling an epidemic of alcoholism. Crime was endemic. Yet this same city produced Samuel Johnson, William Hogarth, Joshua Reynolds, David Garrick, and countless others who shaped modern culture. It was a crucible of creativity, commerce, and innovation.
If you enjoy uncovering the forgotten stories of our world, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Because here, we don't just tell history. We reopen the files history tried to close. And before you go, tell us in the comments, which forgotten civilization should we open the next file on?